as wanted to mention, my presentation today is, imagine what you can do with cognitive and cloud and esports. Right, so there's been a lot of buzz going on in the world about, what is esports doing? What are some next steps at esports? So my imagination today is going to be looking at some of the cloud and cognitive fun that we can have with esports. So a little bit about me. Yes, I'm with IBM, and people are thinking, what? IBM's in games or esports? I usually get that weird stare when I'm talking to people for the first time. It's like, yes. I've been actually in the game space myself 7 years, working in esports the whole time as well, and it's great to be here. So let me see if I can get our little production going here. So as I mentioned, IBM, myself, have been doing this for quite a number of years. We have quite a number of clients out there in the industry. Myself, I've been working with both AAA startups as well as small businesses, esports around the world. I hail from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I probably see my pillow about once a month. my zip codes, I do a bit of traveling to bring some excitement to this world. What people don't realize is that right now, in some capacity around the world, there's probably close to 130 million people at a given moment playing on our systems at any given time. That's right now. And here's an example of me. This is my office. This is my day job. In this particular example, I'm just having fun with the Halo engineering team at a large esports event, doing some pretty creative cognitive and some cloud activities with the Halo engineering team. A lot of fun, a lot of fun. So part of this is imagination, right? That's the reason I brought us together today. So imagine in the world of esports. People are wondering, how do I get engaged in esports? How do I understand who my fans are? Who are my champions? Who's watching? Who's not? And some of those questions that business people try to ask themselves. So for example, I'm an executive of a company. So I'm going to appoint someone today at my TV company, maybe it's ABC, and said, hey, Julie or Bill, today you're going to be an esports expert for ABC television. And they're like, whoa, hold on. I don't know anything about esports. So some of the work I've been asked to do is understanding how to create a understanding of who's watching, who's not, and to be able to provide that, what we call cognitively, in the IBM land space. There's quite a number of things we can do to engage personally. Our cognitive ability understands human sentiment, understands human emotion, understands gameplay. Our cognitive tool, we call it Watson, is been trained on several games in the market right now, understands what's going on. So what we've been doing a lot is, predicting who's going to churn, who's going to watch, who's going to show up to an event, who's going to watch it online, what are they doing in that realm. So that's kind of the way that we're kind of starting today. If you're looking at the customer experience, there's a number of ways that we've been doing this to both understand, who's watching. Do I have opportunities to do some mobile campaigns? Do I have some opportunities to do some engagement, understanding? For example, if someone's not playing a game, or their hands are not on the keyboard, or they're not watching a stream, why is that going on? So what we do is we kind of create kind of a circle of life, if you will, kind of a 360-degree profile of either someone that's watching or someone that's not. And we can offer a very detailed, in-depth engagement information to you if you're executive, if you're a game designer, who's watching and who's not. In the esports land, here's some of the use cases I'm tackling right now. Quite a few of the folks out there are asking, how do I help to understand what the data is? Do I have access to my own game data, right? So for example, I'm a publisher. My game is out there being watched by, 100 million people today? But do I actually understand what they're doing as they're watching that data? Are they chatting? Are they conversing? Are they happy? Are they sad? Does the game suck? Is the game exciting? Those are kind of some of the things that we can drive to help you perform some real live insights. I'll give you an example. So for example, maybe I'm a Kellogg producer of some fine cereals, right? And I've recently become a sponsor with a big publisher as an example. So we have the opportunity to now give the individual detail to that key marketer, who's watching, who's eating my cereal, who's watching the game, and why are they doing that? Because we can actually bring together that whole complete picture for those individuals. Now, here's some fun stuff too. So you've probably heard this in the media, a lot of biz going on about cognitive computing and gameplay. So let's actually discover, what is that, right? What does that mean? So in my mind, it's software that learns, interacts, and understands, without explicit programming, right? You can teach it nuances, you can teach it human emotion, you can teach it different types of sarcasm, you can teach it different types of lingo. For example, StarCraft II will have different type of lingo than Riot, League of Legends versus Overwatch, right? So those are some things that you may want to pull out different nuances to be able to handle that without explicit programming. And so in the world right now, here's some very specific use cases I've been asked to tackle. So for example, in-game NPC. So I'm a fan, right? Maybe I'm watching Dota 2. I want to understand, do I have the opportunity to maybe communicate with the player on the field in Dota 2? Do I have the opportunity to provide some real statistics for the Shoutcasters, right? So I'm doing some shoutcasting, and I'm up there on the spot in front of the TV. I want to have some real-time data that's going to be offered to my viewers as I'm actually analyzing. So for example, if I'm getting some real-time chats and feeds from maybe Scarlett. Scarlett's on the stage, she's kicking it in StarCraft II. I want to be able to get some real-time statistics. What are the fans in the audience saying, right? What are they tweeting? What types of data are they kind of pulling out of that? And so I can cognitively give that information to the shoutcaster so that she or he can be able to have that real-time data information maybe even during the game event or post-game or pre-game to be very effective. Another one, we've heard the words griefing and community toxicity. So we're helping some community managers reduce some of that toxicity or provide them tools to help alleviate that, for example. Customized personal training, here's a good one. So for example, I'm a big game team, right? I may have several types of games I cover. Maybe I cover Dota, maybe I cover League of Legends, maybe I cover StarCraft. So maybe I want to be able to train my up-and-coming team members, right? I can do that organically, or I can do that through our cognitive gameplay, do some customized personal training. So here's a very cool example. I'm not going to show you this one right now, but I think on your free time, we've done a really cool thing with I'm sure if folks are living under a rock, they may not understand this, but if you've been seeing the explosion of PUBG, you know what I'm talking about, right? PUBG went from 0 to 60 in like so many days in terms of the exposure that they went through. So one of the cool things about PUBG, it's multiple games are being streamed at the same time. And so I'm a streamer, or I'm a viewer. Do I have the ability to understand what's the coolest game that's being played right now? So we designed a little bit of fun on our cloud using some very simple tools to understand what is the coolest video that's being played right now. What's the one that the folks we want to flag to watch, this one or this one or this one. So on your free time, you may want to check this out. This is available on GitHub. So take a look and play with it when you have some free time. This one I would like to show you. This is a very cool AR, VR experience. So I'm going to bounce out of the slideshow just for a moment and show us some other cool options that we can do within the esports world.
We wanted to figure out what kind of games we could build around this experience of being in a virtual world with other people. And one of the very first ideas that rose to the top, one of the things, the worlds that we wanted to inhabit with other people, well, Star Trek. We wanted to get on the bridge of a starship and fly it with other people. Star Trek Bridge Crew began with some prototyping we were doing with social experiences in video games and virtual reality, where we had a prototype where you could literally just sit across the table from another person in VR and talk with them.
So you're the captain, and using a menu system, you can give orders to the NPC crew. And that's very cool in a different way. You're still living that Star Trek fantasy, but VR is about being as real, as virtually real as possible. So that menu system was just kind of like our, lowest common denominator way of approaching the problem. And we started talking to IBM about Watson, and we're contacted. It's like, hey, Watson does great speech recognition and voice recognition, and it seems like a natural fit for the game. What do you think? And I was like, well, yeah, that would be awesome, because it just complements VR so perfectly to be able to interact with NPCs in a real, natural way.
We both were interested in seeing where this could go.
he and I kept in contact, and we were in good faith prototyping and working on different ways in which we could implement this, Watson, for this game, which is really kind of a first for Watson also.
We built the game in Unity, and Watson supplied a Unity SDK or API for us to use. So really, it was very fast to hook it up. You know, within a matter of days, probably, we had test commands up and running already.
It wasn't until we started working with Watson that it clicked, that we finally had a technology robust enough that players could use their voice. The captain could just speak to a human player or to an AI and get the expected result.
Fire on my target. Helm, full speed ahead.
One host destroyed.
All right, did we get them? Engineering, transport survivors.
It's really exciting to see this kind of influence coming into virtual reality, to see new technology and new players and new experiences all coming together.
So just think about the ways that you can use that example in a large esports event, right? So maybe you're actually talking or communicating with the champions on Overwatch, for example. So you're actually in the mix during the exciting parts of the combat. So here's another good example where you're actually using our cognitive ability to work with behavior insights in the gameplay or some types of games that you're working on. Because this example here is just to show us that, hey, there's ways that we can interact and understand human emotions and sentiment. In this particular game, this game is a little creepy. It's called The Suspect. And your mission here is to break down the criminal that you've arrested using different cognitive abilities before something bad happens. So it's a good example to take a look at. Other areas. So around the esports world, we've been using cognitive abilities also across a dimension. So kind of in the world, if you think about it, you have the fan, the team, and the actual venue itself. So there's different ways that we've been using that, either in the engagement, the optimization, or performance of that actual event. So for example, what are the people chatting about actually during the game? So who's been at an esports event and the esports event has not started on time? Which is okay, right? The esports community loves that, right? We suck it up. But to a big commercial company like ABC, that's a headache, right? Because if I bought my Kellogg slot at 7:05, the game doesn't start until 8:15, you know, I'm going to have a little issue with that back in management. So some of the ways that we've been looking at that is, you know, the community tells us what to do. I won't tell the esports community what's going on because I'm the big entity of IBM, right? So when we're looking at the different ways to use all of these live events and platform infrastructure, we're always keeping the esports community in mind, right? And by doing that cognitively, you can actually make things flow and ebb during the actual esports event and not worry about being locked in or stuck, for example. So within our IBM world, there's different ways that we can help. Either you move your esports event around the world, if you want to set up an event, if you want to set up a stadium, for example, we have that full capability to support you across the esports structure in doing that. This example I talked about very briefly earlier. So there's a number of esports teams that are saying, hey, I'm being challenged by finding good players. Because a lot of the players are being sucked up in teams left and right, left and right. So sometimes the best player can be the unknown, right? So you think about an event that happens like a DreamHack, right? So DreamHack, I'm a nobody. I could be playing Scarlet or some other star and suddenly become a somebody. And so the way that happens is that things are found organically in this environment. So as the streams are going across, our tool, which is cognitively searching streams and metadata and kind of all that dark data that's unstructured, it's able to say, hey, why is this player unknown? This player should be at the top of the heap, playing for your team, earning X number of dollars. So that's how things are sometimes found cognitively, either through talent or through an esports player. So this is also kind of an exciting thing that a lot of folks are asking for right now to help them find talent. So let me pause here a moment. one of the examples I gave is, right, I'm an executive at Kellogg Cereals, right? I recently signed a large esports sponsorship with a team or with a publisher or with an event. So all of a sudden, I'm supposed to be like the expert esports CEO, like overnight. Like yesterday, I was managing, Kellogg shipments of my cereal, but now my management said, hey, now you're an esports expert there, Sally or Jim. So some of the ways we can take the heat off that instant esports executive or CEO is that we can provide them some very simple ways to bring in content and bring in the audience data and be able to match that up with social data as well as context data that's going on in the event. So kind of if you look at this picture kind of high level, it's taking all that data, the content, the video, the streams, the chat, the excitement that's going on, and maybe provide a player app. Maybe you want to provide a dashboard to executives back at Kellogg, for example, and say, hey, we can provide you down to the nitty-gritty detail of who that player is or who that champion fan is at the nitty-gritty detail, because we can get cognitively down to that individual player, or we can get down to the individual viewer. Granted, we want to hide that data because that's all personal. We don't want to own your data. That's your company data. But what we can do is provide you with the insights to say, Jenny was actually playing StarCraft II at this time, and she was doing this event at this time, and bringing all that data together and say, Jenny was buying your Kellogg cereal, doing this activity at this time, and get you very personal content of who's watching which game at which time, at which type of event. So probably most people in the room here know that 90% of gamers are developers as well. So a lot of the work I've been doing across the landscape is to make sure that we have good guiding principles for not only a gamer, but also for a developer, to provide these good apps, these good services. So if I want to build a game, if I want to build a social interactive tool, if I want to build a stream service, all those environments are available for you on the environment that was designed for gamers. Because there's different ways that you may want to bring in sentiment or understand who's watching the game, who's not, who's watching the screen, who's not watching it, why are they not watching it, or why they should be watching it. And so the concept here is this designed for you, designed for the gamer. I won't get too deep into this, but we have various methods of clouds. We have hybrid, we have public, we have private. We have different flavors. It's like ordering a pizza. If you want this level of cloud, we can deliver it for you. Here is a real-life game example from one of our game companies. They actually said, hey, we are scaling up too fast, too quickly, and so can you help us with that? So we help them scale up too fast as we provide the discipline for them, not only with the scalability, but also with some of the cool tools that you see out there in the field, right? Kubernetes or Dockers to be able to scale up very quickly, be able to get your game up and running very quickly. And during lull periods, you can draw it back down again during this time. This particular example is with Fire Monkeys, part of EA, and we work with their team very closely. And they said, holy cats, now we have the ability to scale up the game during like Christmas season or big seasons or big selling seasons, and then scale it back down again when we don't need it any longer. And of course, we have worldwide capabilities around the world to be able to help you either port your game, we can do some private instances of your game, or we can put it in one of our centers. I think we have close to 60 centers now, if I've lost track. So that's some of our cognitive imagination in games. And if anybody has any questions, I think we have a few moments for questions.
I was curious. What do you see happening in, or what has been the most surprising thing that you've learned from working with a variety of developers in the esports space?
Oh, good question, good question. I think that goes back to, my second to last slide where we talked about there's different ways that the developers are looking for creativity within the game, or creativity within providing information to either their bosses, their managers, or different developers on their development team. So to answer your question, Nicole, is that what they're looking at is different avenues to use different cognitive APIs to produce maybe a similar result or maybe a across-the-board result, to either give it to my dev team, or maybe I want to provide some data to my managers, or maybe I want to provide some information to maybe a streaming community like Twitch or Yahoo or Ustream, for example. Does that make sense? Cool, thank you, good question.
Hi. There's I was wondering if you could speak about some of the advantages of Watson over the other emerging natural language processing programs from Google and Microsoft.
Sure. So very, very valid question. Thank you for that question. So I think one of the big things is that Watson understands you and I as humans. So for example, when I'm talking to you, we're having a conversation, we interact, right? I'll understand you, you'll understand me. We'll have maybe some slang. Maybe I'm from the Bronx, maybe you're from Jersey, right? So there'll be different slang involved. So one of the big keys is that our cognitive ability understands that human sentiment, understands how to react to I as a human, understands the different nuances that go into languages, and those things can be tied in to the gameplay very easily. And so I think to some of my fellow partners that are in the room here is that I think one of the abilities is that bringing in the data, the social sentiment, and being able to create that human side of the experience is a key that I see. Does that make sense?
So thinking about sentiment analysis, what do you see the future of using Watson or other technologies to analyze emotions and heighten them in the esports experience? So making changes to the game or making changes to the way in which the game is viewed based on what Watson say would predict would be the best emotion to experience, at this next moment.
Yes, good question, thank you. So if I was to look into my glass ball, right, I would say that the audience is looking for a similar story of the game they came to. So they don't want to change the entire fabric or structure of the game. But I think what they're looking for is ways that, hey, can I interact in the gameplay? Can I be part of the competition there? So if I'm in a Dota 2 environment, can I be part of that, right? Can I influence others? Can I be a coach on the sidelines during the game along with a real coach, right? So most esports events, you'll have the coach floating behind the team. But I myself, maybe I want to be a cognitive coach. So maybe I can be your cognitive adversary. I could be your hidden NPC in the world. So some of those things to actually involve the story play. Maybe you want to add some more drama into the gameplay. And some of those items can be a very cool thing that a lot of folks are looking for in the esports world. Okay.
Okay, I think that's it. Thanks so much, Bill. It was great.